Now, DVX 109 has been set up with an inbound replication from 108, but it has no outbound replication. So it's not backing up to anything. It's kind of dangerous, right? So instead of pairing with another on-prem, I'm just going to say, hey, since I have the free credit, let's back up the cloud. So let's do that. The first thing you want to do is click this button, Add Replica Destination DVX. So when I click that, it will bring up a dialog. By default, it will show you that you can pair with an on-prem system. If you want to back up the cloud, what you want to do is click on the second radio button. There are 3 pieces of information the user has to provide here. The first is the region. I mean, this one is simple. If your data center is in NorCal, then you want to pick the region that's close to you. Mostly for performance, you don't want to be like picking a data center, AWS region that's half a globe away, right? So in our case, our demo system is actually in NorCal, so I'm just going to leave it at Northern California. And the next 2 fields are basically the access keys that we just created on the Amazon console. Let's go back here and copy paste those in. That's the access key. And this is the secret key. And then all you have to do is hit connect. Now, behind the scenes, the on-prem system is actually connecting to Amazon Web Services. It's deploying the Cloud DVX software, and checking to see if there's any existing Cloud DVX instance running in that account for that region. So this may take a few moments. Let's wait. So yeah, as you see, this account, as I said, was already pre-created. And as Tushar mentioned, DVX 108 has already been set up to back up to this particular instance. So instead of creating a new instance, it's saying that, hey, we found a Cloud DVX instance in your account. Would you like to connect to it? So let's say add. So now, once this step completes, you will have DVX 108 as well as DVX 109 paired with Cloud DVX. So both systems can actually back up to this Cloud DVX instance, and the global dedupe benefits that Sazala and Tushar have mentioned, you'll see.
And it automatically does VPNs and all the other stuff behind the scenes?
Yes, behind the scenes, all the security configurations, network configurations, and we use PKI, specifically public key pinning, to make sure that the Cloud DVX instance does not accept any connections from any unknown clients.
But if you're going to use Direct Connect?
Yes, that is a configuration. There's no reason technically why we cannot support that configuration, but we haven't tested that scenario yet. So in the future, I believe it's on the roadmap to talk to some customers who are interested and actually test it out.
Yeah.
Or do you use any kind of network ACLs in Amazon, or are you using any kind of security groups to stop
yes.
that? Or?
We lock down all ports except the ones that I mentioned are secured by PKI. So at the time of the pairing, we deposit the thumbprint of the source systems that we want the Cloud DVX system to trust, at which point, anytime somebody wants to connect at the SSL handshake phase, we refuse connections from anybody we don't recognize.
That's in your code.
That's in our code. We are dealing with all the security stuff so that you don't have to pay for Amazon's VPN gateway functionalities.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm just asking on the Amazon side, basic stuff like security groups for the EC2 instance.
Yes.
You're setting all that?
Yes.
And you create the account yourself in Amazon that it's going to use, or does your script create all the roles for
yes.
your user?
So behind the scenes, we run an EC2 instance. I'm sure you're well aware. You don't want to take the credentials and persist it somewhere for use. So what Amazon gives you is an ability to create a custom role that services within the EC2 instance can actually use to talk to other services.
For example, and stuff,
and the credential rotates and so on. So it's a lot more secure. That's exactly what we do behind the scenes.
So did you create the role though?
Yes, at the time of the setup. So when you enter the access keys, that's when all the magic happens.
Okay.
So behind the scenes, we create the security role, we create the EC2 instance and VPC along with it, and set up the security group, the gateways to talk to S3 and all the other services. So from a user perspective, you really don't have to do anything. You don't have to understand what Amazon Web Services is beyond just creating that access key. And frankly, I mean, when we first started out on this project, it was amazing to see how some people even like use this thing. So beyond the setup phase, it's like rocket science. There's bazillion services you have to know about, and there's a ton of documentation, and the APIs are not exactly, shall I say, stable.
Well, I mean, that's a good point. Are you guys using a CloudFormation template for this, or are you using just your own scripts?
Right. Very good question. So we looked at CloudFormation very hard for the provisioning step, because why do all that work if Amazon can provide us that feature? The thing that CloudFormation lacks, from our perspective, was the self-healing capabilities. So if there's a partial failure during the provisioning phase, or any time afterwards, if the EC2 instance dies, or even user mistakenly deletes a security group, then what happens? Right? We don't want the system to just go down or inaccessible for an extended period of time before our support engineers can go and fix things. So instead of using CloudFormation, we made the decision to encode all the repair functions and the provisioning functions into Lambda functions. So everything we do behind the scenes, including the role creation, availability, monitoring, all those things, and upgrade, are built into our Lambda functions that we're installing at the time of the setup. So one of the things that we do behind the scenes when you click connect is actually deploying those Lambda functions. And one interesting fact on top of everything else I mentioned was that Lambda functions themselves can have bugs, because I'm a human being, I have bugs. I'll always have bugs. Hopefully not too many, but I'll always have some. So how do you fix the Lambda functions then? Because if the function that takes care of the availability is buggy, then by definition you don't have availability. So Lambda functions themselves can actually heal themselves. So we have a function that's specifically about bringing updates to the availability functions, so that if we find that there's a problem with a monitoring function that detects configuration issues or instance state issues, then we can actually patch those immediately when we discover them.
I'm going to throw a curveball at you then. Azure.
That is a Tushar question.
Because you're really tightly coupled to Amazon here.
Yeah, so we wanted to make the entire experience as easy as possible. So if that meant, for users that is, if that meant we had to use some Amazon-specific functions, we said, so be it.
Okay.
Now, the Azure question is...
Right. So I think, obviously, if you've seen from an object store perspective, we can work with other object stores, so there's nothing preventing that. And I think our focus at this point is to flesh out the functionality and not just widen the scope with that one functionality backup. We want to kind of move towards Cloud DR, and I'll talk about that really quickly. We want to kind of flesh that out completely and give our customers a great experience, because frankly, we want customers to not care about the cloud, right? I mean, I think obviously they may have some differences in what they use today, and we can extend to that pretty quickly, but our goal right now is to give them the end-to-end functionality, make cloud oblivious for them for the most part, and then port that same functionality over to Azure.
You're giving a solution, not just technology. You're giving a solution. That's the approach.
Yeah. I think that's the right way to look at. I mean, that's how the entire company works. We engineers, when we design features, we try to look at it from customers' perspective, and make it so that we can even demo it, as I said. Okay, now the pairing has finished, so I'll say okay. And as you see, now there's a destination called Cloud DVX, and it will give you the IP information for the EC2 instance that we spun up, and that's where our magic sauce data path software is actually running. Now, next step, how do I start backing up the cloud? Let's look at a protection group. Now, this protection group is scheduled to snapshot every 3 hours and retain those snapshots for about a day. You see these snapshots that have already been taken in the last day or so, and it just includes just one VM per snapshot. Now, if we want to, every time there's a snapshot, if we want to back up that snapshot to Cloud DVX, all you need to do is hit Edit Group and Schedule. Click Continue. And then there's a checkbox for replicate snapshots. And select Cloud DVX. And let's say we want to keep it for a month in the cloud, okay, instead of a day. And that's it. You hit finish, and you're set. Every time there is a snapshot taken every 3 hours, it will automatically get backed up to cloud. So if you lose your snapshot or your entire on-prem system goes away, you still have the backup in Amazon. So let's initiate a backup to cloud because we don't want to wait until the next schedule to kick in. And all you need to do is select a snapshot you want to back up, click replicate, select Cloud DVX, and let's say we want to keep it for 1 day. And that's it. Now it's starting to back up the cloud. And as Tushar and Sazala already mentioned, we're only sending the unique data. So if the Cloud DVX instance already has a lot of the data that we're sending, then the data transfer should be very minimal.
Is there any way to throttle how much data is being sent via replication?
Yeah, so I mean, in this example, I think John might be able to show you that the actual provision size of the VM is, I don't know how much is it, but it's about a terabyte. And we were kind of only storing after deduplication compression about a few gigabytes of it. We have a replication transfer window where we can show how much data kind of actually got transferred. Now, there may be a lot of replication tasks on the system,
Right.
so it may be an aggregation of that. We'll be enhancing the product to kind of have more granular replication by replication statistics. We don't have that today. We have it in an aggregated manner.
So, and I may have missed it, I'm sorry. So you do have the ability to throttle that? Like I only want to send this many megabytes a sec. Yes.
Got it. So we have that functionality today for on-prem to on-prem. We haven't added that functionality yet to the Cloud DVX function, but we can add that in the next release of the product. I mean, we already have it. We didn't do it for time to market reasons.
Okay.
Right. Yes, it is definitely on the roadmap. He talks to me about it.
It's one of those things that we see, like certainly on the backup side, you have a lot of vendors like your Rubrics and stuff like that, where there's no way that they've exposed to actually throttle that. And so when we're doing those backups to archive to cloud, basically, then we're just overrunning like the internet pipes.
Absolutely.
That they have.
It's definitely an aspect that we take seriously, and we have that on our roadmap, so we'll kind of get it pretty quickly in the next few releases.
Okay.
Yes, and look, the task has already finished. Despite the VM being, I mean, not small, right? And our network pipe between the lab that's hosting this machine and Amazon is not great. But because most of this data, it's just a Windows template. So most of the data is already backed up in the cloud. So we send very little in the process of backing things up.
Yeah, I think the important thing just to add to that is the cloud did not know about 109. Right? We just added it. So it's basically deduplicating data from 109 with what it already had coming from 108. And so this is sort of the global deduplication.
It's all self-describing hashes, is that the idea?
It's basically metadata exchange. What do I need? I already have it. Send me the metadata.
The hashes themselves are like globally unique.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It's like riverbed type stuff, yeah.
That's exactly right. Because in 108 is, 109 is a newly paired system. It doesn't have a very interesting history in terms of backup. But 108 has been backing up to cloud for a couple of days. So let's look at a protection group that's already been set up with Cloud DVX backup. As you see, these are the local snapshots that are scheduled to be taken every 6 hours or so. And the policy says we'll retain those snapshots for a day. But we also replicate these snapshots to Amazon Cloud DVX for a month. So if you want to see the snapshots that are present both locally as well as on Cloud DVX, all you need to do is click this checkbox that says Show Remote Snapshots. And when you do that, it will show you all the snapshots that are on the local system as well as on Cloud DVX. And as you see, these snapshots are on both systems, both local and cloud, but these 3 snapshots have expired locally, but is only available from Cloud DVX. So if you want to restore from this snapshot, all you need to do is click the checkbox and say retrieve. And when I do that, and let's say we keep it for 1 hour.
So do you support multiple Cloud DVX instances for replication? I mean, could I have, like an instance in US West and one in US West 2 or something like that?
Not today. So today, one on-prem DVX can send data to one Cloud DVX, although you can receive data from multiple on-prem systems like we're seeing here,
Right.
one Cloud DVX.
Right.
And you can retrieve data from any of those systems out of Cloud DVX.
And the S3 backend, though, could potentially be replicated to multiple regions.
Absolutely. It
So-
could be, go ahead, John.
Go ahead.
No, please go.
So I don't know if I'm allowed to talk.
It's okay, go ahead. We'll see.
So my friends and I at Datrium have been talking about cross-regional replication functionalities also for disasters within Amazon, within a region. So this is something that we are very interested in supporting in the future, but I obviously cannot say that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So I initiated that restore task or retrieve task. It is running now, and again, it's the same thing. We only bring back the data that this on-prem system does not have. So that egress cost, that very expensive egress cost out of Amazon that people have to pay when they do restores, if you have most of the data already, it will be a fraction of the cost. So with that, I'd like to, actually before that, since you were asking a lot of interesting questions about the backend stuff, I do want to show you some of the stuff that I'm kind of proud of. So let's actually dive into a little bit into the. Of course, the customers don't need to look at any of this, but just
They
for you
will.
guys,
They all will.
they don't have to, because we'll all manage it by itself.
Except to look up the bills. but-
Yes,
yeah.
the bills, yes, but they don't have to look at this. So this is the EC2 instance that our data path software runs on. And this is entirely managed by the Lambda functions that I was talking about. So you see these various functions, and specifically this Datrium update cloud side function is the one that's available for, that's responsible for monitoring and repairing that specific instance. So if somebody comes in and say, mistakenly deletes the security group or removes a port from it or adds a port from it, we'll detect it and automatically repair it.
How often you run those functions? It's timed, I guess?
Yes, right now it's set up against a cron that's CloudWatch event driven at 5-minute granularity. So it will go and check every 5 minutes. There's no reason why it needs to be 5 minutes because the functions themselves are extremely quick. So in terms of cost, it's not much. It doesn't show up in the bills at all.
Any more than 5 minutes, you start paying, right?
Well, it's a two. So Amazon charges Lambda function costs on two different
It's like nothing.
variables. Yeah, it's almost nothing. At least in terms of the kinds of functions that we run. So it's number of invocations as well as the time duration for each invocation. But of course, since Amazon manages the compute instance that runs these functions, we don't have to worry
Right.
about it. It's their responsibility to actually
What's
manage.
up? Yeah.
And then the update software function is the one that's self-healing for the Lambda functions themselves. So if I were to go and mess with one of these things by mistake, then it would detect that there's something wrong and actually go and fix the functions.
What's going to self-heal the update software function?
Good point. We haven't figured that one out yet. So yes, everything bootstraps
Sorry.
from basically update software function, and from that point on, everything self-heals, basically.
So as
With
a-
that, I'll,
Oh, I was going to ask, you may not be the right person to answer this, but as a customer, how do I pay you for this? Is it per terabyte or is it?
Sure. So customer pays two entities. They pay Amazon. It's basically no markup from Datrium. They
Right.
pay their own cloud. From the Datrium side, we charge a terabyte. We charge a minimum of 5 terabytes is kind of what we offer per year. So it's an annual subscription, and you can start with a 5 terabyte license, and then you can scale it.
Is that 5 terabytes? Is that the deduped use capacity on the Amazon side, or is that your
That's
raw
the actual
source?
consumed capacity on Amazon.
Okay.
So you get effective whatever you get.
So like if I'm getting like your 4-to-1 or
yeah, you can
I
store 20 with that.
Okay.
and with that, I'd like to turn over to Tushar again.
Great.
You should bring him to customers. He's good.
Sure. Absolutely. So, I mean, it's been interesting. I think you kind of customers. We've had a beta program for this product, and we kind of got two, flavors of sort of customers that were interested in this a lot. One of them was, I want to get out of tapes. I want to store my data in the cloud for a long period of time. I have compliance regulations. They're not looking at this as a second site for safety. They're looking at it as the pay-as-you-go, long-term data retention, and I can do something with that data, right? The second one was sort of smaller. I have a second site today that's only doing offsite backups, and I'm paying a certain amount for that. I want to get rid of that. I don't want to manage that. I don't want to do anything with networking, rack, power, cooling, admin, software on that second site. Can I just go to the cloud and get the convenience because I don't have to do anything?
Hang on a second there. So you've got most of the stuff that we're backing up is in VMs, because that's the unit of measure that you're backing up. So that's great, but what your solution, I didn't see anything there about unstructured data in the platform, right? So
that is correct.
So you don't do that. That's going to be within the VMs, correct?
So DVX today is squarely focused on virtual machines.
Yeah,
and
that's
so,
fine.
Yes.
I'm not.
Yes.
No, you don't have to do it. You don't do it. I'm just saying that. But from a long-term archiving perspective, most of the time the VMs are the active machines. Data is usually kept either somewhere else, right, and then managed separate as discrete units because you could have a business record that has to have a different. This file has to be kept with a different, retention than someone else. So one VM, the unit of VM, from a long-term archiving perspective, is usually not what's used to determine, because it could be different things within that VM.
Absolutely.
Right.
You're right.
And I didn't see anything about you guys aren't doing any cracking open a VM to catalog it or anything like that.
So I think I mentioned that up front. Today, from a customer perspective, your granularity of restores is VM and vDisks.
Yeah.
Very soon, we'll be adding the ability to crack open the vDisks and actually look at the guest files, so you can actually just bring back the file that you care about. At that level, you kind of get into the area that you're talking about.
So then you could start getting the data out, copying it into S3 and keeping those on policies at the unstructured level. And you could manage that in the same, that would be cool.
Yes.
So if I have an on-prem install and I'm backing up to your cloud solution, my on-prem gets hit by a meteor. The data that's in AWS has to come back to a Datrium solution, right?
Yes.
So how fast can you guys get me a new physical infrastructure to go into my colo or wherever I'm?
Great point. So today, the limitation is on our side, in the sense of that we support up to 100 megabytes per second of data coming back from the cloud. Theoretically, with one EC2 instance, we can support up to 500 megabytes per second of transfers with one EC2 instance. Remember that our architecture in the future enables us to add additional EC2 instances talking to the same S3 bucket. And so with each EC2 instance, you'll have sort of a 500 megabytes of bandwidth that you can pull from EC2, and then it depends on the WAN link. So ultimately, bottom line is the WAN link will sort of be the problem, unless you can go to a direct connect.
Yeah, I mean, the question.
I'm looking at it more from a physical infrastructure perspective.
How do you get the hardware on site?
If I'm backing up to a disk platform or tape or whatever, it's sort of platform agnostic to the fact that it's just a VM sitting in an infrastructure somewhere. You guys have, built an awesome product and it's doing all this dedupe and fantastic features, but it's still reliant on coming back to your product, which is both great but also sort of a...
You're right. So I think you kind of get into the archival conversation at that point, and I think that's kind of, we're not claiming this as an archival solution yet, because...
Well, it's archival. I'm looking at more from a disaster recovery. My site is gone. I have to bring it back to another Datrium, so I either have to have a cold site or have, again, you guys on speed dial.
Yeah, right. So I think you're looking at sort of a mid-RTO solution at that point, is that either your site comes back up, or you have another site like 109, 108, where you can bring that data back. That's absolutely true. Okay, great. So thanks, John. I'm just going to give a glimpse of this, and when the camera stops rolling, we can have a more detailed chat. Some of this is obviously NDA futures. Where do we go from here, right? So what you've seen is the ability for us to eliminate a lot of the stack on-prem, have one DVX, send data straight to cloud, do it in a very efficient manner. From a customer perspective, it means they can now have data sitting in the cloud in a very efficient way. Our goal as we head into FY18 is to do two things. One is to create a SaaS-based DR orchestration service that runs in the cloud. that can essentially orchestrate disaster recovery, which is the runbooks, automate all of that, on-prem to on-prem, cloud to on-prem, which is the use case that you were just outlining, and prem to cloud, right? And so the goal is that ultimately we want to get to the point where customers can start to think about eliminating their second DR site and have cloud as that on-demand DR site where they can instantiate VMs in the right order so that they don't need to pay for that infrastructure all the time when it's not being used. So that's kind of what we're focused on. Of course, that also allows us to add abilities around test dev analytics. So you can kind of instantiate and make use of those data, of that data that's sitting in the cloud, use cloud services, take advantage of that.